Could you tell us how you got hired by the railroad?
Yes. I came home for a weekend. I was up in Newark visiting an aunt. I was looking for work. And when I came home for the weekend, my dad says, he was an engineer on a railroad, and he said, "You want a job on a railroad?" I said, "No. I went through the Depression with you, and we ate once a day for a few years." And he said, "Well," he said, "you'll be home for the summer. Your girlfriend lives here and everything." I said, "Well, get me an application." "Don't need an application. Just go up and see Doc Eisenberg. That's the first thing you do, pass him." Well, Doc Eisenberg used to come down and go fishing on my dad's boat, and I was on it when the boat went out. So I went up to see Doc Eisenberg, and that's how I got hired.
And what was Doc Eisenberg's title?
He was a company doctor. He was a doctor for PRSL.
And where was he located?
In 22 Federal Street, Camden.
When you hired on with the railroad, did you have to have a family connection?
No, but it helped, I'm sure. but yeah, well, my dad just happened to hear that they were hiring some men in June of '41, and I went up and got the job.
What was your first position on the railroad, Bill?
A fireman. Yeah.
And how did they train the men at that time? What sort of program did you go through?
You went out with a man that rode the engine with you, and you posted for 2 days shoveling coal on a steam engine. At the end of 2 days, if you satisfied that gentleman that was with you, you were a fireman, and you went right to work.
And did you ever see any men denied employment because of their religious or ethnic ties?
Yes.
And generally, what faith were they of, or ethnicity?
When I went up to hire, I was in a room, and a woman was asking me questions, you know, and a man came in, and the doctor put him on the scales, and he said, "I'm sorry, son. You only weigh 152. You have to weigh 155 to get a fireman. This is a very tough job." So we went in. I went in for the eye test. I said, "Doc, let me ask you a question." He said, "What?" I said, "You told that man, that kid, that he only weighed 152. He had to weigh 155." I said, "I only weigh 135. "Yeah, but he said, I know you know how to handle a shovel." "Don't you know why I didn't hire him?" I said, "No." He said, "He's Italian." Italians were nothing but track gang workers.
Is that right?
That's all they hired. They would not hire an Italian in engine service. Amazing. But until the war broke out and they started taking us away, then they hired anybody they could get.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Were you ever a member of the Masons?
No.
By having Mason Masonic membership, did that help you get a job on the railroad?
No. Well, for some people, one of my early road foremen was a Mason, and if you were a Mason, you could get in no trouble on a railroad.
Tell me about when you were qualifying as a fireman. What sort of routes were you assigned to?
Well, you were put on the extra list, and you took whatever job came up. If it was a freight job or a passenger job or a yard job, whatever opened up, somebody took a day off. Well, that's how you worked at anything, any kind of job.
And what was your schedule like on the extra list? Could you tell me about that?
What do you mean by schedule?
How many days did you work on, and then how many days did you work off?
You worked every day if there was an opening, but X number of men on the extra list, and sometimes you didn't work for 3 or 4 days because it wasn't enough jobs opened for the extra list to cover. Other times you'd work twice a day if you could do it, you know. Yeah.
And when you were qualifying as a fireman, do you recall any of those experiences? Did you have any engineers that were harder to work for than others?
Oh, yes.
Or ones that you particularly enjoyed working with?
Well, I fired for Al Eldridge's father, Al Eldridge, and I was on a Millville job from Millville to Camden, commuter train, and stopped at his stations all the way up, you know. And with him, sometimes you'd stop at Glassboro and take water because he run the engine so hard. Al was a pretty hard runner. And he got bumped off, and this older engineer bumped him, and I'm still working the job. He started out, and he'd go half the distance to the station and shut off and drift. And I'm bailing coal and bailing coal. I had a black firebox. He said, "What are you doing, Bill?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to keep up to you." He said, "Yeah, that's no trouble." And I finally found out that I shoveled about half as much coal as I did for Al. It was, yeah.
Do you recall some of the other men that you fired for?
Oh, yeah.
Could you tell me about them?
Well, I'm kind of hazy with names, but many a times I fired for guys that were very nice gentlemen. I mean, they'd help you out if you needed help and tell you, you know, straighten you out a little bit on firing passenger engines and things like that, you know, to shovel coal. And I started in Atlantic City on the extra list, and you get a Broad Street job, and it was 60 miles in an hour and 25 minutes, and with a K4 and about 10 or 12 coaches, you'd shovel 8 to 10 ton of coal.
Wow.
In an hour and 25 minutes. So you didn't rest too much, believe me.
Were you ever assigned to many Stoker-fired engines, or was it all hand bombing?
No, in later years we got Stokers. That's what this H10 was, a Stoker.
Okay.
But and then we got Stokers on the K4s. But for years, after they got Stokers over in the Pennsylvania Railroad, we still had hand fires here. Mm. Yeah.
And did you fire both Reading Company and PR locomotives?
Yes. We had, in the summertime, you'd get some Reading engines come down. They'd loan them to you, you know, and they had Reading engines. And they were hard to fire because they were double doors.
Oh, really?
The G1s and G2s were double doors, 2 doors, and you had to fire this side and then fire this side. You know.
So the Penzie engines were easier to fire?
Oh, yeah, much easier. Yeah.